Next thing up is a spindle nose protector for this little lathe. And to do it, I make plug gauges for all of these, and if you're setting up a lathe, I suggest you make a plug gauge for yourself, because if you're going to keep that lathe, fit up some back plates, that type of thing, well, you need a gauge to be able to turn your threads off of, because usually the lathe that you're cutting your threads on for your back plate or your chuck, whatever the case may be, chuck mounting plate, whatever the case may be, why usually you're turning on the lathe that you've got, which is this one. So you need a plug gauge to be able to measure the threads you've cut to make sure they work with the world. Now, I don't have a chuck set up on this, so I don't really have a chuck handy to measure my threads off of to make a plug gauge. So what I've done is I've taken the spindle nose protector, or the spindle nose, off of my Logan turret lathe, and they're both 8 threads per inch, 1.5 diameter, and I've got a real good fit here, or a fit that I'm very happy with. We've got a little bit of play there, but that's really good for threads. If I make a plug gauge to fit that way, it's going to fit on this Atlas for anything that I do there. So this is going to be the gauge that I use to build the plug gauge off of. So we're going to turn this into Sheldon. So now we know what we've got. We've got 1 inch long for the spindle nose, 1.5 inch diameter for our threads, and we've actually got a 2-inch outer diameter on this shoulder. Now, for the plug gauge, I'm not going to worry about the shoulder. I've got some 1.5 inch stock that I'm going to use, and we'll go back over to the bench and take a look at that. So here's my quick little drawing. 2-inch shoulder on the spindle of the Atlas, inch long, or 1 inch long from the shoulder out to here, 1.5 inch diameter. We've got about a 3/16 relief cut right here in this section. We're 8 threads per inch. So that's really all the information I need. I'm going to turn this out of a piece of 1.5 inch stock, which is just a piece of 1.5 inch that I had laying here. We'll set it up in the Sheldon, face it off, and if I had a little bit rounder stock, like some 1 3/4 or something, I'd go ahead and turn that back shoulder on it. Since I don't, why, this is what I'm going to turn, and this will be perfectly satisfactory for this application. The only thing I'm really interested in is the actual thread diameter, thread pitch, and everything, because that's what I want to match up to anything I turn to fit on that spindle nose. If it was a more complex mounting setup, why, it'd be a little bit different. But on these small lathes like this, where we've basically just got a 1.5 inch diameter spindle, or whatever the case may be, we've got threads turned on them, we can measure out what our thread relief is going to be, or how long it actually needs to be. All I'm really interested in is that we've got 8 threads per inch, and they're the proper size, not undersized, to match into whatever we're going to fit to that spindle. For a spindle nose protector, I've got a piece of 2-inch stock here. The nose protector on the Logan is about 2 1/4 or 2 1/2. I don't remember exactly. It's a little bit larger than this, but all we're doing is a spindle nose protector. This will be just fine. So I'm going to go ahead, go over to the Sheldon. We'll get this turned down, threaded up to match our Logan spindle nose, and we may purdy it up a little bit, but then we can call that good. Then we can move on to making the spindle protector itself. Still a little tight at that last little bit. And I believe where it probably is right where the threads end. Is where I think we're still binding a little bit. I think we'll just go ahead and relieve that, because the only thing we're interested in is the threads itself. But the thread fit feels pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Let's just run us a little bit more of a relief down in here. Even though the factory spindle doesn't have a relief, we can put it here and it's not going to make a bit of difference. There we go. I'm happy with that. Alright, well here's our little plug gauge. Went ahead and knurled the back end. There's our plug gauge up to our index line, or our cutaway there. So it bottomed all the way out the way it's supposed to be. Fits real good. So I'll put this nut back on the Logan, and we've got a plug gauge ready. We'll set it up, mill a flat on there, mark it as Atlas, and we'll probably etch it at some point with the 2019 logo on it. Then we've got a plug gauge. Now we can move on to doing the thread protector itself. Hopefully you found something a little bit useful here. Total machine time on this was probably a little over an hour. You know, a little hour that I got to sit playing on the lathe and building tooling, building parts. So hopefully you found something a little bit useful here. If you did, you might want to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you hit the bell notification, you'll know when I put out a video. And any thoughts, comments, leave them in the comments section for me below. And as always, thanks for taking the time to watch. Well, I couldn't quite leave things well enough alone here. We had to play a little bit more. So didn't change anything. We've already seen this thread on. Let me move this camera down a little bit. We've already seen this threaded on. It threads on to where it's right to the edge of our line there. But what we had to do with this little gauge, since we've already spent an hour on it, is we went ahead and we turned this section down a little bit so it's smooth through there, and we had to put Atlas, the date on it, and my name on it. So just stamped them on there, didn't use my little etching setup, didn't feel like making a stencil up for that. And I may make one since we're going to do a few little things like this. I don't know that we'll be doing much tooling, but anyway, now that little plug gauge is finished. So we're done with that, ready to go.